There are moments that change a life forever. Moments so devastating that everything before them feels like a distant memory. For Amelia Hart, that moment arrived on a cold autumn night inside the Moonfong Pack Hall. Hundreds of wolves filled the grand chamber. The warriors celebrated victory. Music echoed through the air. Glasses collided. Laughter rolled through the crowd. To everyone watching, it looked like a night of triumph. A night of unity. A night of celebration. But hidden among the cheering pack members stood a young woman whose entire future was about to collapse. Her name was Amelia. And before the night ended, she would lose everything. The man she loved. The family she trusted. The home she had sacrificed years to protect. And the future she had secretly dreamed of. Because at the center of the celebration stood Alpha Ryder Blackwood. Powerful. Respected. Feared throughout the region. The man Amelia had devoted her heart to since she was a teenager. The man she believed would one day stand beside her as her mate. Instead, he stood beside another woman. A woman dressed in silver. A woman wearing a victorious smile. A woman who seemed far too pleased to see Amelia standing in the crowd. Moments later, Alpha Ryder raised his glass. The hall fell silent. Nobody knew they were about to witness the beginning of a tragedy. Nobody knew that before dawn, one woman would disappear without a trace. And nobody knew she would leave carrying the Alpha's child. What happened that night would haunt Ryder for years. Because some mistakes cannot be repaired. And some laughs echo long after the sound itself has faded. The question is, what could force Luna to abandon everything she has ever known and vanish into the darkness before sunrise? To answer that question, we must return to the night her heart broke. The Moonfong Pack Hall had never looked more magnificent. Golden chandeliers illuminated the towering ceiling. Silver banners displaying the Blackwood crest hung proudly from stone walls. Long tables overflowed with food and drink. Warriors exchanged stories of recent victories. The elders spoke of prosperity. Every face appeared filled with hope. Every face except Amelia's. Standing near the back of the hall, she watched Ryder from a distance. For years, she had stood quietly beside him. Not in public. Not where others could see. But behind every achievement. Behind every victory. Behind every difficult decision. While Ryder fought battles beyond the borders, Amelia cared for injured warriors. While he attended alpha gatherings, Amelia handled disputes within the pack. She had spent years helping him build the future they were supposed to share. A future she believed was finally within reach. Earlier that morning, she had discovered something that changed everything. Something she intended to tell Ryder that very night. The memory caused her hand to drift toward her stomach. A small gesture, one nobody noticed. But that simple movement carried a secret capable of changing multiple lives. Amelia was pregnant. The realization had filled her with fear.
Excitement. Hope.
She had imagined countless ways to tell him. Perhaps after the celebration. Perhaps when they were alone. Perhaps beneath the moonlight where they first confessed their feelings. She imagined his smile. His surprise. His happiness. She imagined him lifting her into his arms. She imagined their future beginning. Instead, her future was ending. At the center of the room, Ryder slowly rose to his feet. Conversations stopped immediately. Respect followed him wherever he went. His commanding presence demanded attention. Beside him stood Nancy Ashbourne, the daughter of a neighboring alpha. Beautiful, elegant, and far more ambitious than most wolves realized. For months, rumors had connected Nancy to Ryder. Amelia ignored them. She trusted him. She believed their bond was stronger than gossip. She believed he would never betray her. Then Ryder spoke. Tonight marks a new chapter for the Moonfong Pack. The crowd erupted with applause. Amelia smiled faintly. Perhaps he was about to announce their future. Perhaps everything was finally falling into place. Then Nancy slipped her arm through Ryder's. The smile vanished from Amelia's face. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. The room suddenly felt smaller. The air is heavier. An uneasy feeling settled in her chest. Several wolves exchanged knowing glances. Others appeared excited, as though they already knew what was coming. Ryder continued speaking. Our pack needs strength. More applause. Our pack needs powerful alliances. The cheering grew louder. Our pack needs a Luna worthy of standing beside its alpha. The hall erupted. Amelia's heart pounded. Every instinct inside her screamed that something terrible was about to happen. Then Ryder extended his hand. Not toward Amelia. Toward Nancy. The room exploded with celebration. Amelia froze. For several seconds, she couldn't process what she was seeing. The applause sounded distant, muffled, as though she had been pushed underwater. Nancy stepped forward proudly. A triumphant smile spread across her face. And then Ryder delivered the words that shattered Amelia's world. Tonight, I announce Nancy Ashbourne as my future Luna. The crowd erupted. Cheers filled every corner of the hall. Some wolves stood. Others raised their glasses. Several rushed forward to congratulate the couple. Amelia remained motionless. She couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Couldn't move. She stared at Ryder, waiting, praying, hoping he would correct himself. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them it was political. Tell them anything. But he didn't. Instead, he wrapped his arm around Nancy, as though Amelia no longer existed. Then came the whispers. The first one was quiet, the second louder. Soon dozens of voices moved through the crowd. Questions, speculation, mockery,
Pity.
every word struck like another wound. Nancy noticed Amelia standing alone. Their eyes met, and Nancy smiled. Not kindly, not sympathetically. The smile of someone who had won. Slowly, deliberately, Nancy approached her. The crowd watched with growing curiosity. Everyone sensed something important was about to happen. Something Amelia desperately wished she could escape. But she couldn't. Not now. Not with every eye fixed upon her. Nancy stopped only a few feet away. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she tilted her head and spoke words Amelia would never forget. Did you really think he would choose you? Silence spread through the area around them. Several wolves lowered their eyes. Others leaned closer, waiting, watching. Amelia struggled to answer. But before she could speak, Nancy laughed softly. Poor Amelia. The woman glanced toward Ryder, then back at her. You are useful. The words hit harder than any slap. Useful. Not loved. Not valued. Useful. As if the years Amelia spent sacrificing for the pack meant nothing. As if her loyalty had no value. As if her heart had never mattered. Tears threatened to fall. She looked toward Ryder. One final time. One final chance. One final opportunity for him to defend her.
To stop this.
To prove she hadn't wasted years loving him. Instead, he laughed. A short laugh. A careless laugh. A laugh that lasted only a moment, yet somehow destroyed everything. And in that instant, Amelia understood something terrifying. The future she had imagined no longer existed. The man she loved was gone. Or perhaps he had never truly been there at all. Hours later, as rain battered the windows of her small cottage, Amelia sat alone in darkness. No celebration. No congratulations. No future. Only silence. Slowly, trembling, she placed both hands over her stomach. Tears slid down her cheeks. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to cry. Not for herself. Not for Ryder. But for the child who would never know the happiness she had once imagined. Then she whispered 4 words. 4 words that would change the course of the entire story. At least I still have you. What Amelia didn't know was that before sunrise, a knock would come at her door. And that knock would reveal a secret buried for over 20 years. A secret powerful enough to shake kingdoms. A secret that would make powerful alphas hunt for her across the continent. But why had nobody told Amelia the truth about her past? And who had finally decided it was time for her to know? The storm intensified as midnight approached. Rain hammered Amelia's cottage roof with relentless force. Outside, strong winds swept through the forest surrounding the Moonfong territory. Inside, however, the silence felt even heavier. Hours had passed since the celebration. Hours since Alpha Ryder publicly chose Nancy. Hours since Amelia's world had collapsed in front of hundreds of witnesses. Yet despite everything that had happened, one truth remained unchanged. She was not alone. A new life was growing within her. And that single fact was the only thing preventing her from falling apart completely. Seated beside the fireplace, Amelia carefully unfolded a small document resting on the table. She had read it countless times already. Each reading brought the same mixture of emotions.
Fear.
Disbelief. Wonder. The report confirmed what she had suspected for weeks. The exhaustion. The dizziness. The unusual sensitivity of her wolf.
There was no mistake.
She was carrying Ryder's child. A tiny heartbeat. A future. A responsibility she never expected to face alone. For a brief moment, Amelia imagined what might have been. A different night. A different announcement. A different outcome. She pictured Ryder learning the truth. She pictured joy in his eyes. She pictured him promising to protect their family. Those dreams vanished as quickly as they appeared. Reality was far less comforting. The man she once trusted had made his choice. And Amelia had no intention of begging for a place in a life where she was no longer wanted. A sudden knock interrupted her thoughts. 3 sharp taps. Firm. Urgent. Amelia quickly wiped away her tears. Only one person would visit at such an hour. Come in. The door opened. Beta Marcus stepped inside. The second in command of Moonfong immediately noticed her swollen eyes. His expression tightened. Marcus had known Amelia for years. He understood her loyalty better than most. He also knew she rarely cried, which made the situation even worse. Without speaking, he removed his wet cloak and closed the door behind him. For several moments, neither said anything. Sometimes silence revealed more than words ever could. Finally, Marcus spoke. You disappeared from the celebration. Amelia gave a weak smile. I don't think anyone noticed. Marcus lowered his gaze. Unfortunately, she was right. Most of the pack had been too focused on Ryder and Nancy. The realization bothered him more than he cared to admit. You should have told me, he said quietly. Told you what? Things have become this bad. Amelia looked away, because she didn't know how to answer. How could she explain years of loyalty ending in a single evening? How could she explain loving someone who barely seemed to notice her pain? Marcus sighed heavily. Then his eyes drifted toward the folded report lying on the table. Something about it caught his attention. A symbol from the healer's clinic. An official seal. Concern crossed his face. What is that? Amelia froze. For a moment she considered hiding it. Then she realized there was no point. Marcus had always been one of the few people she trusted. Slowly, she slid the document across the table. The beta unfolded it. His eyes scanned the page. Seconds passed. Then his entire expression changed.
Shock.
Pure shock. He looked at Amelia. Then back at the report. Then at Amelia again. You.
His voice faltered.
You are pregnant? The room fell silent. Rain continued striking the windows. Fire crackled softly nearby. Amelia nodded. Marcus sat down immediately, as though his legs had suddenly become unreliable. Does Ryder know?
No.
The answer came quickly.
Too quickly.
Marcus stared at her. He doesn't know he's going to be a father? Another shake of her head. A curse escaped his lips. The beta stood and began pacing. This information changed everything. The future alpha heir. The continuation of Ryder's bloodline. The child carried by the very woman Ryder had humiliated hours earlier. If Ryder discovered the truth later, the consequences would be enormous. You have to tell him. Amelia laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the suggestion felt impossible. Tell him what? The truth. The truth wouldn't matter. Marcus stopped walking. It absolutely matters.
No.
Amelia looked directly at him. He chose someone else. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it again, because deep down he understood. She wasn't refusing out of pride. She was protecting herself, protecting the child, protecting what little remained of her heart. After what happened inside that hall, exposing her pregnancy would only create new complications. Political complications. Pack complications. Personal complications. Nothing good would come from it. At least, that was what Amelia believed. Marcus returned to his seat. His expression softened. What are you going to do? The question lingered between them. Amelia already knew the answer. She had known for hours. Perhaps longer. The decision terrified her. Yet staying terrified her even more. I'm leaving. Marcus stared at her. Leaving. Before sunrise. The words sounded unreal even to her. Moonfong had been her home. Every memory she possessed existed here. Every friendship. Every achievement. Every dream. And now she was preparing to abandon all of it. Marcus slowly shook his head. You can't leave alone. I can.
No.
His tone became firm. The forest beyond the territory isn't safe. It will have to be. Another silence followed. This one longer. More complicated. Marcus knew he should report this conversation. As Beta, loyalty to the Alpha came first. That was the law. That was the expectation. Yet for the first time in years, he found himself questioning those rules. Because Amelia wasn't the villain in this story. She was the victim. Before he could respond, another knock echoed through the cottage. A much louder knock. Both wolves immediately looked toward the door. Amelia frowned. Nobody else should have been visiting. Not at this hour. Marcus rose carefully, instinctively, cautiously. His hand moved toward the weapon at his side. Something felt unusual. The atmosphere had changed. The visitor waited silently. No second knock followed. No voice announced itself. Only silence. Marcus opened the door. A hooded messenger stood outside. Rainwater streamed from his cloak. Mud covered his boots.
He looked exhausted.
As though he had traveled a great distance without rest. The stranger reached inside his cloak. Marcus tensed immediately. But instead of drawing a weapon, the messenger produced a sealed letter. One glance at the seal caused Marcus's face to lose color. Because he recognized it. Every educated wolf recognized it. The symbol belonged to a bloodline many believed existed only in ancient records. A family so powerful that entire kingdoms once obeyed their commands. The royal crescent. The messenger handed the letter to Amelia, then spoke a single sentence. A sentence that would change the course of her life forever. They finally found you. Before Amelia could ask what he meant, the messenger turned, walked back into the storm, and disappeared into the darkness, leaving behind questions neither Amelia nor Marcus could answer. Questions that became even more terrifying when Amelia broke the seal. Because the first line of the letter contained words she never expected to read. Words addressed directly to her. Not Amelia, heart of Moonfong. Not Amelia, daughter of ordinary wolves. Not Amelia, rejected mate of Alpha Ryder. But Amelia, the lost daughter of the Crescent Throne. And if that statement was true, then who was Amelia really? For several seconds, Amelia simply stared at the letter. The flames dancing inside the fireplace cast shifting shadows across the page. Her fingers tightened around the parchment. 100 questions raced through her mind. None of them made sense. Lost daughter of the Crescent Throne. The title felt impossible. Absurd. She had spent her entire life believing she was ordinary. Not wealthy. Not noble. Certainly not connected to one of the oldest ruling bloodlines in werewolf history. Slowly, she lowered herself into a chair. Marcus remained standing nearby. His attention never left the document. Neither wanted to speak first. Both feared what they might discover. Finally, Amelia began reading. The letter contained no greeting, no introduction, no explanation. Only a message written with startling urgency. If this letter has reached you, time is running short. Amelia's pulse quickened. For 23 years your existence has been hidden. Her breathing slowed. The truth was concealed to keep you alive. Marcus frowned. Alive? Protected from whom? Amelia continued. Your mother belonged to the Crescent Royal line. Your father served among the kingdom's guardians. Both were killed shortly after your birth. The room became completely silent. The words struck harder than she expected. She barely remembered her parents. Most of her memories came from stories told by others. Stories she had never questioned. Until now. The next paragraph shattered everything she thought she knew. They did not die by accident. Amelia froze. A chill moved down her spine. Marcus immediately noticed the change in her expression. What is it? She swallowed, then continued reading aloud. Their deaths were ordered by individuals seeking control of the throne. The beta's face hardened. This was no family mystery. This was murder. Political murder. The kind powerful wolves committed when crowns and kingdoms stood in the way. Amelia forced herself onward. Those responsible believed you died alongside them. They were wrong. The fire crackled. Rain battered the roof. Yet neither sound seemed real anymore. Everything outside that letter faded into the background. For years, loyal protectors watched from a distance. They ensured your safety without revealing themselves. Unfortunately, your existence has recently been discovered. Marcus took a step forward. His instincts immediately sharpened. Discovered. The word carried danger. A great deal of danger. Amelia continued. You are no longer safe within Moonfang territory. Leave immediately. Trust nobody except the bearer of this seal. If you remain where you are, others will arrive. And unlike us. The next sentence caused her heart to stop. They will not come to protect you. The letter ended there. No signature. No names. Only the royal emblem pressed into crimson wax. For several moments, neither wolf spoke. Marcus eventually broke the silence. When did they find you? Amelia looked up. I don't even know who they are. And now someone does. The realization settled heavily between them. If the letter was genuine, powerful individuals had been searching for Amelia. Not recently. For decades. The implications were terrifying. Before either could continue, a sudden movement outside the window caught Marcus's attention. His head turned instantly. A survival instinct. Years of combat training. Years of protecting territory. Years of identifying threats before they struck. What was that? Amelia looked toward the glass. Nothing. Only darkness. Only rain. Only forest. Marcus moved closer.
Carefully.
Slowly. His gaze scanned the tree line. Then he saw them. A pair of glowing eyes. Far beyond the cottage. Watching. Waiting. Another pair appeared. Then another. Then another. Marcus's entire body stiffened. There were too many. Far too many. Amelia noticed his expression immediately. What is it? The beta did not answer right away. His attention remained fixed on the shadows. Because the wolves standing among the trees weren't from Moonfang. He knew every patrol route. Every guard rotation. Every warrior is assigned to border duty. These wolves belonged elsewhere. And they were observing Amelia's home. His voice lowered. We have a problem. Amelia rose immediately. What do you mean? Marcus stepped away from the window. They found you. The words seemed to drain all warmth from the room. Amelia felt her stomach tighten. How many? I don't know. That answer frightened her even more. Because Marcus rarely admitted uncertainty. Another flash of lightning illuminated the forest. For a brief second, the landscape became visible. Amelia saw them. Figures standing between trees. Motionless. Silent. Watching. The sight sent a wave of fear through her entire body. The strangers weren't attempting to hide. They wanted her to know they were there. And somehow, that made the situation even worse. Marcus immediately grabbed his cloak. You need to leave.
Now.
Right now. The urgency in his voice left no room for debate. Amelia glanced around the cottage. The small home had been her refuge for years. Every corner contained memories. Every object represented part of her life. Yet suddenly none of it mattered. Because remaining here could cost far more than a house. It could cost her future. It could cost her child. Without another word, she gathered the few belongings she could carry. A spare cloak. Several personal items. The medical report confirming her pregnancy. Nothing else. There wasn't time. Marcus moved quickly. Checking exits. Checking windows. Checking the darkness beyond the cottage walls. Each passing second increased the risk. Then another realization struck Amelia. What about Ryder? Marcus paused. Not because he needed to think. Because he already knew the answer. He can't help you. The truth hurts.
Even now.
Even after everything. A small part of her wanted Ryder to come through the door. I wanted him to explain. Wanted him to stop her from leaving. But that version of Ryder existed only in memories. Not reality. The alpha who laughed inside the pack hall would never arrive. And waiting for him would be a mistake. Marcus secured the final strap on his sword belt. Then looked directly at her. There is a hidden route beyond the eastern border. Amelia nodded. I know it. It hasn't been used in years. Will they know about it? Beta's answer came immediately.
No.
For the first time that night, a small spark of hope appeared. Perhaps she could escape. Perhaps she could reach safety. Perhaps the letter had arrived before it was too late. Together, they stepped outside. The rain hit like ice. Wind whipped through the trees. Thunder rolled across the sky. The forest seemed alive. Restless. Uneasy. Marcus led the way. Every sound mattered. Every shadow mattered. Every movement mattered. Several times they stopped completely. Listening. Watching. Waiting. The journey felt endless despite lasting only minutes. Eventually they reached the edge of Moonfong territory. A narrow trail disappeared into dense woodland. Few wolves knew it existed. Even fewer remembered it. This was where their paths separated. Amelia looked back one final time. Toward the pack she once called home. Toward the life she once imagined. Toward the alpha who had unknowingly lost everything. Marcus stepped forward, then handed her a small dagger. For protection. She accepted it. Thank you. The beta lowered his voice. Whatever happens next, he hesitated, searching for the right words. Don't come back until you're strong enough that nobody can hurt you again. Amelia nodded, then turned toward the darkness ahead, and disappeared among the trees. Marcus watched until she vanished completely. Only then did he begin the journey home. But neither wolf realized something crucial. The figures watching from the forest had not been alone. Far away, hidden beneath heavy rain, a rider mounted on a black horse observed the entire escape. He waited until Amelia disappeared, then pulled back his hood, revealing silver eyes. The unmistakable mark of royal blood. A faint smile crossed his face. Not because Amelia had escaped, because she was finally moving toward exactly where he wanted her to go. Meanwhile, back inside Moonfong territory, Alpha Ryder slept peacefully, unaware that the woman carrying his child had just vanished, unaware that powerful forces had entered his world, unaware that when morning arrived, nothing would ever be the same again, because at sunrise, he would walk into Amelia's cottage and discover something that would leave him speechless. The house would be empty, the fire would be cold, and the woman he believed would always remain nearby would be gone. Morning arrived beneath a blanket of gray clouds. The celebration had ended hours earlier. Most pack members remained asleep. Others wandered through the territory recovering from a long night of feasting and drinking. Life appeared normal, peaceful, routine. Yet within a matter of hours, an absence would be noticed. An absence that would gradually transform into concern, then confusion, then something far worse. Inside the Alpha House, Ryder Blackwood stood before a large window overlooking Moonfong territory. The storm had finally passed. Moisture clung to rooftops. Mist drifted across distant fields. Everything seemed calm. Everything except his thoughts. Although he refused to admit it, fragments of the previous night kept returning to him.
A glance.
A look. A pair of wounded eyes. Amelia's eyes. Several times he pushed the memory away. Several times it returned. The sensation irritated him. He convinced himself it was guilt. Nothing more. A temporary feeling. One that would disappear soon enough. After all, he had made a decision for the future of the pack. Political alliances required sacrifice. Leadership demanded difficult choices. That was what he kept telling himself. Yet something felt unsettled. Like a loose thread refusing to remain hidden. A knock sounded at his office door. Enter. A young warrior stepped inside. Alpha. Ryder nodded. What is it? The Ashbourne delegation will depart this afternoon.
Nancy.
The reminder immediately shifted his attention. Negotiations. Agreements. Future plans.
Those were the priorities now.
Not old emotions. Not complicated memories. Certainly not Amelia. Or at least that was what he intended to believe. The warrior hesitated, then cleared his throat. There is one other matter. Ryder looked up. What matters? The younger wolf shifted uneasily. Several workers mentioned they haven't seen Amelia this morning. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Then Ryder shrugged. She probably wants time alone. The explanation seemed reasonable, expected even. After everything that happened at the celebration, avoiding people made sense. The warrior nodded. Perhaps. Yet something about his tone suggested uncertainty. Ryder dismissed the concern immediately. That will be all. The guard departed. The door closed. The conversation should have ended there. It should have been forgotten. Instead, Ryder found himself staring toward the window once again. Why hadn't she appeared? Normally, Amelia faced difficulties head-on. She wasn't the type to hide. She wasn't the type to disappear. An uncomfortable feeling settled within him. Nothing serious. Just enough to be annoying. Hours passed. The feeling remained. By midday, Ryder finally gave in. Not because he was worried. At least that's what he told himself. He simply wanted confirmation. Nothing more. Nothing less. The journey to Amelia's cottage took only minutes. The familiar path wound through a quiet section of territory. One he had traveled countless times before. The closer he came, the stronger the strange feeling became. When the house finally came into view, Ryder immediately slowed. Something was wrong. The chimney produced no smoke. The curtains remained closed. The garden appeared untouched. No signs of activity. No signs of movement. No signs of Amelia. His pace quickened. A moment later, he reached the front door. Then stopped. The door stood slightly open. A detail so unusual it instantly caught his attention. Amelia never left doors open. Never. Carefully, Ryder stepped inside. The silence greeted him first. Then the emptiness. The cottage felt abandoned.
Cold.
Still.
Wrong.
His gaze moved across the room. Several shelves stood partially cleared. Personal belongings were missing. A travel bag had disappeared. Drawers remained open. Not ransacked. Organized. Intentional. Someone had packed. Someone had left. Ryder's heartbeat increased. He moved deeper into the cottage. Searching. Looking for an explanation. Looking for a note. Looking for anything. Then he noticed something resting on the table. A silver necklace. Simple. Elegant. Familiar. The sight stopped him instantly. Because he remembered the day he gave it to her. Years earlier. Before responsibilities became overwhelming. Before politics complicated everything. Before distance quietly grew between them. Amelia treasured that necklace. She wore it almost every day. Yet now it sat abandoned on a wooden table. As though she no longer wanted it. As though she no longer wanted anything connected to him. Ryder picked it up slowly. The metal felt cold against his skin. A memory surfaced without permission. Amelia smiling. Amelia laughed. Amelia believed him when he promised she would always matter. The memory disappeared almost immediately. Yet the discomfort remained. Growing. Expanding. Demanding attention. For the first time, a troubling possibility entered his mind. What if she hadn't simply left for a walk? What if she had actually gone? A voice interrupted his thoughts. Looking for someone? Ryder turned sharply. Marcus stood in the doorway. Expression unreadable. Posture rigid. Unlike most wolves, the beta showed no concern about confronting his alpha. Not today.
Not after last night.
Ryder narrowed his eyes. Do you know where she is? Marcus studied him quietly. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then the beta answered. Yes. Relief arrived instantly, followed by irritation. Then tell me. No. The response landed like a physical blow. Ryder stared at him. What do you mean no? Marcus stepped into the cottage. His gaze moved briefly toward the necklace, then back toward Ryder. You don't get to ask that question. The alpha's jaw tightened. Explain yourself. I think you already know. A dangerous silence followed. Tension filled every corner of the room, because both wolves understood this conversation wasn't really about Amelia's location. It was about what happened at the celebration. It was about choices, consequences, damage. Ryder folded his arms. Whatever point you're trying to make it. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he did exactly that. You humiliated her. The words carried no hesitation, no fear, no uncertainty. Ryder's expression darkened. That situation was more complicated than.
No.
Marcus cut him off. It wasn't. The interruption shocked even Ryder. Nobody interrupted an alpha, especially not publicly. Yet Marcus continued. She spent years supporting you. Marcus. She trusted you. Enough. You laughed. The cottage fell silent. Ryder looked away. For the first time since arriving, he had no response. Because he remembered. The laughter. The crowd. The look on Amelia's face. Marcus took another step forward. Then delivered the sentence that changed everything. You didn't just humiliate her. Ryder frowned. What are you talking about? The beta's expression hardened. Every word arrived with deliberate precision. She came to tell you something. A strange feeling formed in Ryder's chest. What? Marcus hesitated briefly. Not because he doubted himself. Because he knew exactly what would happen next. Once spoken, the truth could never be taken back. Finally, he answered. She was pregnant. The world seemed to stop. No sound, no movement, no thought. Only those two words. She was pregnant. Ryder stared at him, waiting, expecting clarification. I'm expecting a correction. Expecting anything that would make the statement less devastating. Nothing came. Marcus simply held his gaze. The silence confirmed everything. Ryder's breathing slowed, then stopped entirely. His mind returned to the previous night. Every moment suddenly looked different. Every interaction carried new meaning. The sadness, the tears, the expression on her face, the way she kept touching her stomach. Details he ignored. Details he failed to understand. Details that now felt impossible to forget. His voice emerged barely above a whisper. Pregnant. Marcus nodded. The alpha's grip tightened around the necklace. His knuckles turned white. A child. His child. The realization struck harder than any enemy attack. Amelia had come to him carrying life. Hope. A future. And he answered with humiliation. Then something else occurred to him. Something far worse. If Amelia truly left, she wasn't alone. She was carrying his heir. And he had no idea where she was. For the first time in many years, genuine fear entered Alpha Ryder Blackwood's heart. Because suddenly this was no longer about pride. No longer about politics. No longer about alliances. This was about losing something he never realized he had. And somewhere far beyond Moonfong territory, the woman carrying his child was already moving farther away. But what Ryder did not know was that Amelia's journey had already reached its destination. And, at that very moment, a king was preparing to welcome her home. For the remainder of that afternoon, Alpha Ryder Blackwood barely spoke. Witnesses later recalled seeing him walk through Moonfong territory with unusual focus. He ignored greetings, dismissed meetings, postponed discussions. Even Nancy's attempts to gain his attention failed. His thoughts remained fixed on a single revelation. Amelia had been carrying his child. Every passing minute made the truth harder to accept. Not because he doubted Marcus. The beta never lied. The difficulty came from understanding what the information meant. The previous night could no longer be viewed through the same lens. What once seemed like a political announcement now appeared far more damaging. Because while Ryder celebrated an alliance, Amelia had arrived carrying news capable of changing both their lives. And he never gave her the opportunity to speak. That realization followed him everywhere, like a shadow refusing to fade. By evening, he returned to her cottage. A second visit, then a third. Each inspection produced the same result. Nothing. No note. No explanation. No destination. No indication of where she might have gone. The emptiness frustrated him. Amelia had left carefully, purposefully. almost as if she knew someone would come searching. Meanwhile, Marcus remained equally unhelpful. The beta refused to reveal anything, refused to answer questions, refused to offer guidance. A decision Ryder found increasingly difficult to tolerate. Yet even he recognized something unusual. Marcus wasn't protecting a secret. He was protecting Amelia. And that alone spoke volumes. As daylight disappeared, Ryder finally made a decision. He assembled tracking teams, ordered border patrols to expand their search radius, questioned merchants, questioned travelers, questioned neighboring settlements. Nobody had seen her, or at least nobody admitted seeing her. The trail ended almost immediately, as though Amelia had vanished from existence itself. Hours later, while Moonfong searched in growing desperation, Amelia stood before something she never imagined possible. A kingdom, not a territory, not a pack settlement. A kingdom. Massive stone walls stretched toward the horizon. Towering gates guarded the entrance. Ancient banners fluttered above enormous watchtowers. Every structure reflected wealth,
History.
authority. The sight left her speechless. The messenger who had delivered the royal letter rode several steps ahead. Throughout the journey, he answered almost none of her questions. Every inquiry received the same response. All will be explained soon.
Soon.
The word had become infuriating, because Amelia possessed more questions than answers. Questions about her family, questions about the throne, questions about the wolves who spent years monitoring her life from a distance, questions about why powerful individuals suddenly wanted her found. As they approached the gates, another detail captured her attention. The guards. Each warrior wore silver armor marked with the same emblem from the letter, the crescent symbol, a mark she had never seen before receiving the message. Now it appeared everywhere, carved into stone, displayed upon flags, etched into weapons. The symbol wasn't merely important here. It represented authority itself. A deep horn echoed from above. Massive gates began opening. The sound reverberated across the valley. Amelia instinctively slowed. The kingdom beyond looked even larger than expected. Wide roads, elegant buildings, crowded marketplaces, training grounds filled with warriors. Everything appeared alive with activity. Yet something else stood out. The reactions. People were watching her, not casually, not out of curiosity. Something stronger. Recognition. Respect. Several citizens lowered their heads as she passed. Others stepped aside entirely. The behavior made no sense. These people had never met her, or so she believed. The procession continued toward the center of the kingdom. Eventually, a palace emerged into view. Its sheer size dwarfed every structure around it. White stone walls reflected sunlight. Tall spires pierced the sky. Grand staircases stretched toward enormous entrances. For a moment, Amelia wondered whether she had entered a dream. Then the escort stopped. The messenger dismounted first. Amelia followed. Immediately, several palace attendants approached. Not aggressively, not suspiciously. Instead, they appeared nervous. One woman nearly dropped the documents she carried. Another seemed unable to stop staring. Amelia noticed. The attention made her uncomfortable. Before she could ask why, palace doors swung open. The crowd around the entrance instantly stepped aside. Silence followed. A path formed. Every eye shifted toward a single figure emerging from within.
Tall.
Commanding.
Composed.
The man moved with absolute confidence. Dark hair framed sharp features. Silver eyes reflected generations of authority. Unlike most leaders, he required no introduction. His presence alone made clear who he was. King Lucian Crescent, ruler of the Crescent Kingdom, one of the most influential alphas in existence. Stories about him traveled across continents. Some described him as brilliant. Others described him as ruthless. Many described him as both. Amelia expected distance, formality, questions, perhaps suspicion. What happened instead left everyone stunned, including her. Lucian descended the palace steps,
Crossed the courtyard.
stopped directly before Amelia, then lowered himself onto one knee. The entire courtyard gasped. Guards froze. Servants stared. Even the messenger looked relieved, as though he had been waiting years to witness this moment. Amelia stood motionless, unable to process what she was seeing. Kings did not kneel, certainly not before strangers. Yet Lucien remained where he was, head lowered, hand pressed against his chest. A gesture of profound respect. The silence became overwhelming. Finally, Lucien spoke. His voice carried across the courtyard with remarkable clarity. "Welcome home." Amelia blinked. Home? The word struck harder than expected, because no place had felt like home since she left Moonfong. And somehow this stranger had spoken it with complete certainty. Slowly, Lucien raised his gaze. His silver eyes met hers. For the briefest moment, something unusual crossed his expression. Relief. Not political relief. Not diplomatic relief. Something deeply personal. As though a burden carried for many years had finally been lifted. Amelia swallowed. "Do you know me?" The question hung in the air. Lucien rose smoothly, then gave an answer that changed everything. "Long before you knew yourself." A chill ran through her. Not from fear. From anticipation. Because she sensed the truth was finally within reach. The truth about her parents. The truth about her past. The truth about why powerful wolves had searched for her for decades. Yet before she could ask another question, Lucien's attention shifted briefly toward her stomach. The movement lasted less than a second. Most observers missed it entirely. Amelia did not. Nor did Lucien's expression. Something changed. A flicker of surprise, followed immediately by concern. Then understanding. Whatever he noticed clearly mattered. And whatever he realized had not been expected. When his gaze returned to hers, his voice became noticeably more serious. "There is much we need to discuss." Amelia frowned. "What is it?" Lucien hesitated. An unusual action for a ruler known for certainty. Then he looked directly into her eyes and delivered a statement that sent shock through her entire body. "Your arrival was important." He paused. "But the child you carry," his expression hardened, "may be even more important than you." The courtyard fell silent once more. Because if the king himself sounded concerned, then what exactly was growing inside Amelia? And why did the future of an entire kingdom suddenly seem connected to an unborn child? The question lingered long after Lucien spoke. Why would an unborn child concern a king? Why would a ruler whose authority stretched across multiple territories react so strongly to news of a pregnancy? Amelia wanted answers. Immediately. Unfortunately, answers rarely arrive all at once. Instead, they reveal themselves piece by piece. And each piece often raises even more questions. Lucien escorted her through the palace without another public discussion. The moment they crossed the entrance hall, attendants closed enormous doors behind them. The sounds of the courtyard disappeared. Only silence remained. The interior of the palace felt older than anything Amelia had ever seen. Portraits lined the walls. Ancient tapestries displayed scenes from distant centuries. Statues honored warriors, rulers, scholars, and Lunas, whose names had been forgotten by most of the world. Every corridor carried history. Every room carried significance. Eventually, Lucien guided her into a private chamber. The room appeared less like an office and more like a library. Shelves filled with records stretched from floor to ceiling. Maps covered one wall. Ancient books occupied polished wooden tables. A fire burned quietly nearby. Lucien gestured toward a chair. Amelia sat. Not because she felt comfortable, because her legs suddenly felt weak. The previous 24 hours had transformed her life completely. First betrayal, then escape, then revelations, then a kingdom. Now a king speaking as though he had known her for years. Nothing felt real anymore. Lucien remained standing. For several moments, he simply studied her. Not rudely, not suspiciously. More like someone confirming something they had waited a very long time to see. Finally, he spoke. "Your mother was Princess Evelyn Crescent." Amelia's breath caught.
A name.
A real name. Not a rumor. Not a legend. A name connected directly to her past. Lucian continued. Evelyn was the younger sister of my father. Amelia stared at him, trying to process the information. If that statement was true, then she wasn't merely connected to the royal family. She was part of it. Lucian seemed to recognize her confusion. Which makes you my cousin. Silence followed. The word felt strange.
Cousin.
Family.
Blood.
Relationships she never knew existed. Amelia looked away briefly, trying to organize her thoughts, trying to understand how an ordinary life had suddenly become something entirely different. Why was I hidden? The question arrived instantly. Lucian nodded, as though expecting it, because every answer ultimately led back to that single mystery. Why had a royal child been raised far away from her own bloodline? The king moved toward one of the shelves. After searching briefly, he removed an old leather-bound journal. Carefully, he placed it on the table between them. The cover showed signs of age.
Where?
Years of handling. This belonged to your mother. Amelia froze. For several seconds, she simply stared. The journal felt more valuable than gold. More valuable than a kingdom. Because for the first time in her life, she possessed something that belonged to the woman who gave birth to her. Slowly, she reached forward. Her fingers brushed the cover. A strange warmth moved through her chest. An emotional connection she couldn't explain. Lucian allowed the moment to settle before continuing. 23 years ago, your mother became the target of a faction seeking control of the throne. Amelia listened carefully. Every detail mattered. Several noble families believed the royal bloodline had become too powerful. The king's voice remained calm, measured, controlled. Yet beneath the composure existed something else. Disappointment. The kind created by old wounds. They attempted negotiations first. Lucian folded his hands behind his back. When negotiations failed, they pursued another solution. Amelia already knew the answer, even before he said it. Violence. Power struggles often ended that way. Lucian confirmed her suspicion. They arranged assassinations. The room felt colder. Amelia lowered her eyes. A painful reality settled over her. Her parents had not been victims of fate. They had been hunted, targeted, eliminated, not because of anything they did, because of who they were. The realization left a hollow feeling inside her. She spent years believing their deaths were unfortunate, accidental. Now she understood they were intentional,
Planned.
calculated. Lucian's expression darkened. Your mother discovered the plot before it reached completion. Amelia looked up. A flicker of hope appeared. What happened? The king exhaled slowly. She saved you. 3 simple words. Yet they carried enormous weight. She knew they would come. His voice softened slightly. She knew she could not stop them. A brief pause followed. So, she made certain they couldn't find you. Amelia's throat tightened. The image formed immediately. A mother protecting her child. A mother sacrificing everything. A mother making impossible choices. Lucian nodded toward the journal. Before she died, she entrusted you to loyal guardians. Tears threatened to form. Amelia blinked them away. Not because she wasn't emotional, because she wanted to hear every detail. Your location remained secret. Lucian returned to the table. Only a handful of individuals knew where you were. Amelia finally understood. The years, the secrecy, the hidden observers. Everything connected. Everything fits together. Almost everything. One question remained. The most important question. If I was hidden successfully, she leaned forward. Why am I being found now? Lucian became silent. A dangerous silence. The kind that usually preceded unpleasant truths. Eventually he answered. Because someone recently started searching again. The words immediately tightened the atmosphere. Amelia's stomach turned. They know I'm alive? Not everyone. How many? Lucian's gaze hardened. Too many. That answer was enough. If powerful enemies were searching once more, then her arrival here was not simply about family. It was about survival. The king walked toward a large window overlooking the kingdom. When he spoke again, his voice carried new urgency. There is another matter. Amelia's heart sank. Somehow she knew the conversation was about to become even more complicated. Lucien turned toward her. Your bloodline carries abilities unlike any other. Amelia frowned. What abilities? Without warning, Lucien placed a small crystal sphere on the table. The object appeared ordinary.
Clear. Smooth.
Harmless. Yet the moment Amelia touched it, everything changed. Silver light burst from the crystal. The room illuminated instantly. Bookshelves glowed. Walls shimmered. Ancient symbols appeared across the sphere's surface. Amelia jerked her hand back. The light vanished. Silence followed. Lucien didn't appear surprised. Not even slightly. Which somehow made the situation more unsettling. What was that? The king answered immediately. Your power. Amelia stared. My what? Lucien approached the table once more. Members of the Crescent bloodline possess rare gifts. The explanation sounded impossible. Yet after everything she had experienced recently, impossible no longer seemed impossible. The king continued. Most inherit small fragments. He looked directly at her. Very few inherit what you carry. A chill moved down Amelia's spine. The crystal had reacted violently. Far more dramatically than expected. She remembered the symbols. The brightness. The intensity. Lucien noticed her concern. Then delivered another revelation. Someone sealed your abilities when you were an infant. Amelia's eyes widened. Seal. The king nodded. To protect you. The explanation made sense. A powerful royal child would attract attention. Dangerous attention. The less extraordinary she appeared, the safer she remained. At least until now. Can the seal be removed? Lucien's expression became thoughtful. For the first time, uncertainty appeared. A rare sight from someone usually so confident. Yes. Amelia waited. Unfortunately, the hesitation worried her. There was clearly more. Finally, Lucien continued. But removing it carries risks. The room fell quiet. What kind of risks? The king's gaze moved toward her stomach, then back toward her face. And suddenly Amelia understood. The concern wasn't only about her. It involved the child. Or perhaps the children. Though neither of them knew that yet. Lucien spoke carefully. As your abilities awaken. His words slowed. The child you carry may awaken as well. Amelia felt her pulse quicken. What does that mean? The king remained silent for several seconds. Then delivered a statement that left her speechless. A royal bloodline has not produced an heir with your potential in over 3 centuries. The weight of the revelation settled heavily between them. Because if Lucien was correct, then Amelia wasn't simply a forgotten princess. She wasn't merely a survivor. She wasn't merely carrying an alpha's child. She represented something much larger. Something powerful enough to concern kings. And somewhere beyond the safety of the Crescent Kingdom, unknown enemies were already moving. Because rumors travel quickly. And whispers had begun spreading across the continent. Whispers that the lost royal heir had finally been found. The question was no longer whether danger would come. The question was, who would reach Amelia first? By the following morning, Amelia's life had entered an entirely different chapter. Less than 2 days earlier, she had been a member of Moonfang Pack. A woman living quietly on the edge of pack politics. A woman whose future seemed tied to a single alpha. Now she resided within royal walls. Surrounded by secrets. Surrounded by history. Surrounded by truths hidden from her since birth. Most people would have struggled to adapt. Amelia certainly did. Yet beneath the confusion, another feeling had begun to emerge. Determination. For the first time in years, her future no longer depended on Ryder. No longer depended on Moonfang. No longer depended on anyone else's approval. Whatever came next would depend entirely on her. And that realization changed something inside her. 3 days after arriving, training began. Not combat training. Not immediately. The first lessons focused on control, understanding, awareness. According to Lucien, abilities inherited through the Crescent bloodline responded strongly to emotion. Fear strengthened them. Anger amplified them. Grief could trigger them unexpectedly. Because Amelia had spent years suppressing powerful emotions, nobody truly knew what might happen once the seal weakened. The uncertainty concerned everyone, including Lucian, including Amelia, especially Amelia. The training grounds occupied a secluded section of palace property, protected by walls, protected by guards, protected by layers of security designed to contain unusual events. Those precautions seemed excessive at first. They did not seem excessive for long. On the first day, nothing happened. On the second day, nothing happened. On the third day, everything changed. A royal instructor handed Amelia a small silver stone. The object appeared ordinary. No markings. No symbols. Nothing remarkable. Hold it.
She did.
Focus. She obeyed. The instructor nodded. Now clear your thoughts. Amelia closed her eyes. Several seconds passed. Then something strange occurred. A warm sensation spread through her fingertips. Not painful. Not uncomfortable. Simply unusual. The warmth moved upward. Through her hands. Through her arms. Through her chest. A faint glow appeared around the stone. Several instructors exchanged concerned glances. Nobody interrupted. Nobody moved. The light grew brighter. Then brighter still. Suddenly, cracks appeared across the surface. Not on the stone. Across the air itself. Thin silver lines spread outward like shattered glass. Gasps erupted around the training area. Amelia immediately opened her eyes. The glowing fractures vanished. The stone crumbled into dust. Complete silence followed. The instructors stared. Amelia stared. Nobody spoke. Finally, one elderly teacher broke the silence. That has never happened before. Not exactly reassuring. News traveled through the palace rapidly. By sunset, nearly every royal advisor had heard about the incident. By midnight, the entire kingdom had heard. The lost princess was awakening. And whatever power existed inside her appeared stronger than expected. Over the following weeks, progress accelerated. Abilities emerged gradually. Then suddenly, one day Amelia sensed approaching visitors long before guards announced their arrival. Another day, she identified a hidden object without searching. A week later, she stopped a falling weapon before it struck a servant. Not physically. Without touching it at all. Each development created excitement. Each development created concern. Because nobody fully understood the limits of her capabilities. Least of all Amelia herself. Yet while her strength increased, another transformation was taking place. One even more important. Her confidence returned. Slowly.
Steadily.
The woman who once lowered her gaze now met challenges directly. The woman who once questioned her worth now understood her value. The woman who once measured herself through Ryder's attention no longer needed his validation. Healing does not happen overnight. But healing had begun. And everyone around her noticed. Including Lucian. Although neither spoke openly about it, a mutual respect developed between them. The king never treated Amelia like a burden. Never treated her like a political asset. Never treated her like a fragile victim. He challenged her. I supported her. Trusted her. The difference mattered. More than either admitted. One afternoon, nearly 2 months after her arrival, Amelia received a message from the palace healer. A routine examination. Nothing unusual. At least that was what she expected. The healer's chambers occupied a quiet wing overlooking royal gardens. Bright sunlight filled the room. Medicinal herbs lined shelves. Ancient medical texts occupied nearby tables. Everything appeared normal, comfortable, familiar. The examination began routinely. Questions, observations, measurements. Nothing alarming, nothing unexpected, until the healer became strangely quiet. Amelia noticed immediately. What is it? The older woman did not answer. Instead, she repeated part of the examination. Then I repeated it again. A third time. Concern replaced patience. Is something wrong? The healer slowly lowered her hands. Her expression had changed completely. Shock. Disbelief. Confusion. Amelia's stomach tightened. The silence lasted several seconds. Far too long. Finally, the healer looked directly at her. What I'm about to tell you has only happened twice in recorded royal history. Amelia blinked. Not exactly the answer she expected. The healer inhaled deeply, then spoke. There isn't one heartbeat. The room fell silent. Amelia frowned. What do you mean? The healer's voice softened. There are two. Everything stopped. For several seconds, Amelia simply stared, unable to process the statement. 2 heartbeats.
2.
Not 1. Not a mistake. Not uncertainty.
2.
The realization struck with overwhelming force. Twins. She was carrying twins. A rush of emotions flooded through her.
Shock.
Disbelief.
Joy. Fear. Hope.
Questions. So many questions. The healer smiled faintly. Then it immediately became serious again. Because there was more. Much more. Ordinarily, twin births are rare. Amelia nodded slowly. But this isn't ordinary. The healer glanced toward the door, as though ensuring privacy, then lowered her voice. Both children carry traces of royal energy. Amelia felt her pulse accelerate. What does that mean? The healer hesitated, choosing her words carefully. It means they began awakening before birth. A chill moved through the room. Amelia sat completely still. The statement sounded impossible. Yet impossible seemed to follow her everywhere lately. The healer continued. I have never witnessed anything like this. Before Amelia could respond, another voice interrupted. I feared this might happen. Lucien stood in the doorway. The king had clearly arrived moments earlier. His expression revealed concern rather than surprise, which immediately worried Amelia. You already knew? Lucien entered slowly. I suspected. The healer stepped aside, allowing him to approach. The king looked toward Amelia, then toward her stomach. His next words changed everything. There is an ancient prophecy. Amelia's heart skipped. The phrase sounded familiar, dangerously familiar. Every kingdom possessed legends. Most were exaggerated. Some were misunderstood. A few contained truth. Lucien's expression suggested this was one of the latter. A prophecy about what? The king's answer came quietly, yet the impact was enormous. Twins. The room became completely silent, not because anyone wanted silence, because nobody knew what to say next. Lucien's gaze hardened, as though remembering something deeply troubling, something old, something important. Then he spoke words that would alter the direction of the entire story. According to the oldest records, the birth of royal twins signals the beginning of a struggle that determines the future of every major werewolf kingdom. The weight of the statement settled heavily over the room, because if the prophecy was true, then Amelia's children were no longer simply children. They had become targets. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, others were already searching. Others were already listening. Others were already preparing. Because news of the lost princess had spread. And soon, another piece of information would spread alongside it. The lost princess was expecting royal twins. A revelation powerful enough to attract allies, powerful enough to attract enemies, and powerful enough to bring someone unexpected directly to the gates of the Crescent Kingdom. Someone who had finally discovered where Amelia had gone. Someone who was running out of time. Someone named Ryder Blackwood. The announcement remained confined to a handful of trusted individuals. At least, that was the intention. Unfortunately, secrets rarely remain hidden for long, particularly within royal courts, particularly when those secrets involve bloodlines, succession, and children connected to ancient legends. Within days, whispers began moving through the Crescent Kingdom. Quiet conversations emerged in palace corridors. Guards exchanged theories during patrol shifts. Servants discussed possibilities behind closed doors. Nobody possessed the complete truth. Yet everyone understood one thing. Something important was happening. Something capable of reshaping the future. Meanwhile, Amelia found herself confronted by a reality she never anticipated. She was going to become a mother. Not once.
Twice.
The thought filled her with emotions she struggled to organize. Excitement mixed with concern. Happiness mixed with responsibility. Every morning brought new questions. Would they be healthy? Would they inherit her abilities? Would they inherit Ryder's? Would they be safe? That final question troubled her most, because recent discoveries had revealed an uncomfortable fact. Her children were no longer ordinary unborn pups. Their existence carried significance, and significance attracted attention. The wrong kind of attention. 3 nights after the healer's revelation, Lucien summoned Amelia to a restricted section of the palace. Few individuals possessed access. Even fewer knew it existed. The entrance remained concealed behind a massive stone wall inside the royal archives. Ancient mechanisms shifted when activated. Heavy stones moved aside. A hidden passage appeared. Amelia followed Lucien downward. The staircase seemed endless. Torchlight illuminated narrow corridors. Dust covered sections of the walls. The deeper they traveled, the older everything appeared. Eventually, they reached a circular chamber. Thousands of books occupied towering shelves. Ancient maps covered surrounding walls. At the center stood a stone pedestal. Upon it rested a single manuscript, bound in silver, protected by age, protected by importance. Lucien approached carefully, almost respectfully. The oldest surviving record. Amelia studied the manuscript. What does it contain? The king's expression grew serious. The prophecy. The word echoed throughout the chamber. For months, Amelia had heard fragments, references, hints, warnings. Now she would finally hear the complete story. Lucien opened the manuscript. Several pages appeared damaged by time. Others remained surprisingly well preserved. After locating the passage he needed, he began reading. His voice carried steadily through the room. When the moon and crown unite once more, when forgotten blood returns, 2 heirs shall rise beneath silver light. Amelia listened carefully. Every word felt significant. Every sentence felt deliberate. Lucien continued. 1 shall command strength. 1 shall command wisdom. Together they shall hold the power to unite divided realms. A strange feeling settled over Amelia. Not fear. Not exactly. Something closer to unease. Because prophecies rarely arrived without consequences. The king turned another page. His expression darkened. Amelia noticed immediately. What is it? Lucien hesitated. Then I resumed reading. Many shall seek them. Many shall fear them. Many shall attempt to claim what was never theirs. Silence followed. Neither needed further explanation. The message was clear. The twins would not simply attract admiration. They would attract conflict. The prophecy had transformed unborn children into symbols. And symbols often became prizes. Amelia lowered her gaze. Instinctively, her hands moved toward her stomach. Protective. Maternal. Immediate. Lucien noticed. The prophecy is not destiny. Amelia looked up. The king closed the manuscript. It describes possibilities. Not certainties? Correct. Relief arrived. Small but meaningful. Because she refused to accept that her children's futures had already been decided by words written centuries ago. Unfortunately, events beyond the kingdom suggested others viewed the prophecy differently. Far beyond crescent borders, information traveled quickly. Messages crossed territories. Messengers crossed mountains. Rumors crossed continents. And eventually, those rumors reached individuals with dangerous ambitions. One such individual sat inside a distant council chamber. The room contained 6 wolves, all influential, all powerful, all interested in the future of the Crescent bloodline. A messenger knelt before them. His report had just concluded. The chamber remained silent. Then one council member finally spoke. So, the princess survived. Another nodded. And now she carries heirs. A third leaned forward. What if the prophecy is genuine? No immediate answer followed, because none of them knew. And uncertainty often frightened powerful people more than certainty. The eldest member tapped his fingers against the table. Find them. The order sounded simple, yet everyone understood its meaning. Observation. Investigation. Preparation. The hunt had begun. Back within Crescent territory, Amelia remained unaware of the growing interest surrounding her pregnancy. For the moment, her attention focused elsewhere. Training, preparation, learning, healing. Life gradually became more stable. For the first time since leaving Moonfang, genuine peace seemed possible. Then everything changed again. One afternoon, Lucien received an urgent report. A border captain arrived unexpectedly, breathing heavily, travel-worn, clearly having ridden without rest. The captain requested an immediate audience. Within minutes, Lucien stood inside the war chamber. Several advisors gathered nearby. Maps covered a large central table. The atmosphere felt tense. The captain wasted no time. A lone alpha has crossed 3 territories. Lucien frowned. Name? The answer came instantly. Ryder Blackwood. The room fell silent. Several advisors exchanged looks. Others appeared confused. Lucien remained expressionless. Yet his eyes revealed recognition. Months had passed since Amelia vanished. Months since Ryder learned about the pregnancy. Months spent searching,
questioning,
following fragments of information, following rumors, following possibilities. Now he had finally succeeded. He had discovered where Amelia was. One advisor folded his arms. What does he want? The captain answered immediately. He refuses to leave. Another advisor scoffed. Remove him. The captain shook his head. We tried. That answer changed everything. Several eyebrows rose. Lucien stepped forward. Tried? The captain nodded. He defeated every challenge. Silence followed. The king studied the map. Thoughtful. Calculating. Ryder's determination was obvious. Most wolves would have abandoned the search long ago. Most wolves would have accepted failure. Ryder clearly had not. The captain continued. He says he isn't leaving until he speaks with Amelia. Across the kingdom, Amelia remained unaware of the discussion. At that exact moment, she stood within the palace gardens, watching the sunset, enjoying one of the few peaceful evenings she had experienced in months. For a brief time, everything felt calm. Then a palace attendant approached rapidly. The young woman appeared nervous, almost frightened. Amelia immediately noticed. What happened? The attendant stopped, trying to catch her breath, then delivered a message capable of reopening wounds Amelia believed were finally beginning to heal. There is someone at the gate. Amelia frowned.
Who?
The attendant swallowed, then answered. Alpha Ryder. The world seemed to stop. The gardens, the sunset, the breeze. Everything faded into the background. Only one thought remained. Ryder had found her. After months of searching, after months of silence, after months apart, he was here, standing outside the kingdom, waiting. The question was no longer whether they would see each other again. The question was whether Amelia was ready for that moment. Because beyond those gates stood the man who broke her heart, the father of her children, and the first person she ever loved. What neither Amelia nor Ryder realized was that another pair of eyes had also reached the kingdom. Eyes filled with jealousy. Eyes filled with resentment. Eyes belonging to someone who refused to let Amelia keep what she believed she had finally found. Someone named Nancy Ashbourne. For several moments after hearing Ryder's name, Amelia remained motionless. The words seemed unreal, like an echo from a life she had already left behind. Yet the expression on the attendant's face confirmed everything. This was not a misunderstanding. Not a rumor. Not a mistake. Ryder Blackwood had reached the Crescent Kingdom. After months of searching. After months of unanswered questions. After months of distance. He was finally here. A strange mixture of emotions rose within her. Some are old. Some new things. Some she thought had disappeared forever. Memories resurfaced without permission. Shared conversations. Quiet evenings. Promises spoken beneath moonlight. Moments that once felt permanent. Moments that now felt painfully distant. Amelia closed her eyes briefly, then exhaled. When she opened them again, her expression had changed.
Calm. Composed.
Controlled. Because the woman who left Moonfang no longer existed. That version of Amelia had vanished on the night she crossed the border. The woman standing here now had survived heartbreak, survived uncertainty, survived revelations capable of shattering entire identities. She would not allow herself to fall apart again. Not for anyone. Not even Ryder. Especially not Ryder. Meanwhile, beyond the kingdom gates, Ryder stood beneath the fading evening sky. Travel had exhausted him. Dust covered his clothing. Several small injuries remained visible from the challenges he had faced along the journey. None of it mattered. Not anymore. Because after months of searching, he had finally reached the end of the trail. Every rumor, every lead, every setback, every disappointment, they had all brought him here. To this kingdom. To this gate. To this moment. 2 royal guards stood nearby, watching carefully, watching constantly. Neither appeared particularly impressed by his status, which frustrated him more than he cared to admit. Inside Moonfong, being Alpha commanded immediate respect. Inside Crescent territory, things operated differently. Here, Ryder was simply another visitor requesting entry. Nothing more, nothing less. The massive gates remained closed. The waiting felt endless. Then movement appeared. Heavy mechanisms shifted. Chains rattled. Ancient doors slowly opened. Ryder's heartbeat accelerated. For the first time in months, anticipation replaced frustration. Figures emerged from within. Royal guards, advisors, attendants, several nobles. Then Lucien. The king walked at the center of the group. Confidence. Unhurried. Completely at ease. Ryder immediately recognized him. The ruler's reputation extended across countless territories. Powerful, intelligent, respected, dangerous. Every description seemed accurate. Lucien stopped several feet away. Silver eyes studied Ryder carefully. The silence stretched. Neither Alpha seemed interested in speaking first. Finally, Lucien broke it. You traveled far. Ryder held his gaze. I didn't come for you. A few advisors exchanged uncomfortable looks. Lucien, however, remained completely unbothered. I assumed as much. The king's composure only increased Ryder's irritation. Months of searching had left little patience. I want to see Amelia.
Direct.
Simple. Honest. Lucien considered the request. Then answered. That decision belongs to her. The response struck harder than expected. Because deep down, Ryder already knew it was true. For too long he had made choices without considering Amelia's feelings. For too long he assumed she would always remain nearby. That assumption had cost him dearly. Lucien's attention shifted briefly. Toward the palace. Toward someone approaching. Ryder followed his gaze. Then everything else disappeared. The world seemed to narrow. Sounds faded. Movement faded. Thought itself seemed to fade. Because Amelia had appeared. Standing at the top of a stone staircase. Bathed in golden evening light. For several seconds, Ryder could only stare. Not because she looked different. Because she looked transformed. Confidence radiated from her. Strength radiated from her. She carried herself differently. Held herself differently. Even her expression had changed. Gone was the uncertainty he remembered. Gone was the quiet hesitation. Gone was the woman who constantly placed others before herself. This Amelia looked like someone who knew exactly who she was. And exactly what she deserved. The realization struck him unexpectedly. He had spent months imagining this reunion. None of those imagined versions prepared him for reality. Amelia descended the staircase slowly. Each step felt deliberate, measured, controlled. When she finally reached the courtyard below, silence settled across everyone present. Nobody spoke. Nobody interrupted. Because some moments deserved silence. This was one of them. Ryder looked directly at her. Amelia looked directly at him. The first meeting after months apart. The first meeting after betrayal. The first meeting after everything changed. 1,000 words waited between them. Yet neither knew where to begin. Eventually, Ryder spoke first. Amelia. Her name left his lips softly, almost carefully. Amelia acknowledged him with a small nod. Nothing more. The response surprised him. Months earlier, seeing him would have filled her eyes with emotion. Now she appeared calm, almost detached. The difference unsettled him, because it revealed something he had feared for a long time. She no longer needed him. Ryder swallowed. The realization hurt more than expected. I searched everywhere. Amelia remained quiet. I know. 3 words.
Simple.
Polite. Distant. The distance bothered him, because distance had never existed between them before. Not like this. Not this kind. He took a step forward. Instinctively. Immediately, several royal guards shifted positions. The movement did not go unnoticed. Neither did Lucien's reaction. The king remained relaxed. Yet his attention never left Ryder. A subtle warning. A silent reminder. Amelia was under his protection. Ryder noticed. And for reasons he couldn't fully explain, the realization irritated him. More than irritated him. The feeling felt suspiciously close to jealousy. The thought annoyed him immediately. Yet the feeling remained. Because Lucien clearly cared about Amelia. And Amelia clearly trusted Lucien.
Trust.
Respect.
Partnership.
Everything Ryder once possessed. Everything he had lost. The conversation continued. Awkward at first. Careful. Measured. Neither willing to expose deeper emotions. Then Ryder's gaze drifted lower. A completely accidental movement. One brief glance. One brief moment. One brief realization. His entire body froze. Because beneath Amelia's elegant gown, a visible curve could no longer be hidden. Her pregnancy had advanced significantly. The sight struck him harder than anything else. Reality suddenly became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a possibility anymore. Wasn't a theory. Wasn't information delivered through someone else. The children existed. His children. Growing. Living. Waiting to enter the world. Ryder struggled to speak. When words finally emerged, his voice sounded different.
Softer.
Almost fragile. You're showing. Amelia instinctively rested a hand against her stomach. The gesture looked natural. Protective. Beautiful. The sight somehow made everything worse. Because it reminded Ryder of everything he missed. Everything he failed to experience. Everything he lost. Then another realization struck him. Something unexpected. Something impossible. His wolf reacted first. Before logic. Before the reason. Before I thought. The reaction hit like lightning. 2 presences. Not 1.
2.
His eyes widened. Disbelief crossed his face. Amelia noticed immediately. So did Lucien. Ryder looked directly at her. Then at her stomach. Then back at her. The words emerged almost as a whisper. 2 heartbeats. Silence exploded across the courtyard. Nobody needed clarification. Nobody needed an explanation. Because everyone understood exactly what he meant. Ryder's face lost color.
Twins.
Not 1 child.
2.
The revelation shattered whatever composure remained. Months of guilt suddenly doubled. Months of regret suddenly doubled. Months of loss suddenly doubled. 2 children. 2 lives. 2 futures. And he had missed all of it. Amelia watched the realization unfold across his face. I watched the shock. I watched the grief. I regretted it. Part of her felt satisfaction. A small part. A wounded part. The part that remembered standing alone inside the pack hall. The part that remembered hearing laughter. The part that remembered walking away with tears in her eyes. Yet another part of her felt something far more complicated. Because despite everything, Ryder's pain appeared genuine. And genuine pain is difficult to ignore. Unfortunately for Ryder, another truth waited nearby. A truth far more devastating than twins. Because while he stood staring at the future, he nearly lost. He failed to notice the way Lucien looked at Amelia. Failed to notice the way Amelia looked back. Failed to notice the quiet understanding that had developed between them over months. A connection built through trust, support, presence. The very things Ryder failed to provide when she needed them most. And moments later, that truth would become impossible to ignore. Because Lucien was about to reveal something that would leave Ryder questioning whether he had arrived too late. Not too late to find Amelia. Too late to win her back. The courtyard remained silent long after Ryder discovered the truth.
Twins.
The word echoed through his thoughts repeatedly. Twins. 2 children. 2 futures. 2 lives he had nearly lost before they even began. The realization refused to leave him. Yet another realization soon followed, perhaps even more painful. While he spent months searching for Amelia, life had continued without him. Not paused, not waiting, not standing still. It had continued moving forward. And Amelia had moved forward with it. That truth stood directly in front of him. Stronger, wiser, more confident, more complete. Everything about her reflected growth. Everything about him reflected regret. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then Ryder finally gathered enough courage to say the words that had haunted him for months. "I'm sorry." The statement sounded small compared to the damage.
Small compared to the pain.
Small compared to everything he wished he could undo. Yet it was the truth. Amelia studied him carefully.
Searching.
Measuring. Evaluating. The apology appeared sincere. That much was obvious. The problem was not sincerity. The problem was timing. Because some wounds heal, some scars remain, and some moments alter lives forever. Ryder stepped forward.
Slowly. Carefully.
"I never stopped looking for you." Amelia's expression remained unchanged. "I know." Again, the same calm response. No anger. No tears. No bitterness. Strangely, that hurt more. Because anger suggested attachment. This calmness suggested acceptance. And acceptance terrified him. "You have every reason to hate me." The words came quietly. Amelia considered them, then shook her head. "I don't hate you." Relief appeared briefly. Only briefly. Because she continued speaking. "I hated what happened." Her voice remained steady, controlled. "There's a difference." Ryder listened. Every word mattered. Every sentence felt like a door opening into emotions she had kept hidden for months. Amelia folded her hands together, then finally addressed the memory neither could escape. The night of the celebration. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Everyone understood the importance of that moment. The turning point. The moment everything changed. Amelia looked directly at him. "I spent days preparing what I wanted to tell you." Ryder's chest tightened. "The pregnancy." "Of course. The pregnancy." She continued. "I was nervous." A faint smile appeared.
Not happy. Sad.
Reflective. "I must have practiced the conversation 100 times." Ryder lowered his gaze. The image formed instantly. Amelia planning. Amelia hoping. Amelia believes. The image hurt.
Badly.
"I thought you would be happy." Silence followed. No one interrupted. No one moved. Because there was nothing to interrupt. Nothing to add. Only the truth.
Raw.
Painful. Honest truth. Amelia's eyes drifted toward the sky briefly, as though revisiting the memory, then returned to Ryder. "I remember standing there." Her voice softened. "I remember hearing everyone celebrate." Ryder clenched his jaw. The memory returned immediately. The hall.
The crowd.
The announcement. Everything. Then came the sentence he feared most. The sentence he had replayed countless times. "I remember hearing you laugh." The word struck harder than any weapon. Because there was no defense. No explanation. No excuse. The laughter happened. The damage happened. Nothing could change that. Ryder closed his eyes. For a moment, he seemed unable to breathe. "I know." His voice barely emerged. "I know." Amelia nodded slowly. Not because she forgave him. Because she acknowledged the truth. Then she delivered the sentence that finally revealed why she left. "That was the moment I stopped waiting." The words settled heavily across the courtyard. Not dramatic. Not loud. Not emotional. Simply honest. And honesty often hurts more than anger. Because those words explained everything. Why did she leave? Why she never returned? Why she built a new life elsewhere? Why did she survive without him? That single moment ended years of hope. Years of patience. Years of believing things would eventually improve. The realization devastated Ryder. because for the first time, he fully understood the consequences of his actions. Not political consequences, personal consequences, human consequences, the kind that remains forever. Before he could respond, another voice entered the conversation.
Lucien.
The king had remained silent until now, observing, listening, allowing Amelia to speak for herself. Now he stepped forward, not aggressively, not confrontationally, simply present, steady, protective. You wanted forgiveness. Lucien's silver eyes met Ryder's. The alpha remained silent. Lucien continued. Forgiveness cannot be demanded. Ryder's jaw tightened. The statement irritated him. Not because it was wrong, because it was right. Painfully right. The king glanced toward Amelia. Trust is earned. Then back toward Ryder. Trust can also be broken. Silence followed. No challenge came. No argument followed. Because there was nothing to argue against. The truth stood plainly before everyone. Amelia trusted Lucien. Amelia no longer trusted Ryder. The difference changed everything. Before the conversation could continue, rapid footsteps echoed across the courtyard. A palace messenger approached at speed, breathing heavily, face pale. The urgency immediately caught everyone's attention. Lucien frowned. What happened? The messenger stopped, trying to catch his breath, then delivered news nobody expected. We captured an intruder. Several guards exchanged looks. Lucien's expression hardened.
Who?
The messenger swallowed, then answered. Ashbourne Territory Representative. Amelia felt her stomach tighten instantly. Ashbourne. There was only one reason that name mattered. Only one reason it carried weight.
Nancy.
Ryder's attention sharpened immediately. The messenger continued. She entered the kingdom under a false identity. Shock spread across several faces. Lucien folded his arms. Bring her. Minutes later, Nancy entered the courtyard, flanked by guards. Gone was the confident woman Ryder remembered. Gone was the polished image she carefully maintained. Anxiety had replaced confidence. Fear had replaced certainty. The moment her eyes landed on Amelia, something dark flashed across her face. Something ugly. Something revealing. Amelia noticed. So did everyone else. Lucien wasted no time. You lied to enter this kingdom. Nancy remained silent. The king's gaze narrowed. You also requested private access to restricted records. Still silent. The tension grew. Then another figure stepped forward. An elderly clerk from Ashbourne Territory. A witness. Someone brought specifically for questioning. What followed changed everything. One statement after another. One revelation after another. One secret after another. Gradually, the truth emerged. Nancy had manipulated reports, manipulated communications, manipulated perceptions. For years, small lies became larger lies. Larger lies became dangerous lies. Dangerous lies became life-altering lies. Ryder listened in stunned silence, because every revelation pointed toward the same conclusion. Nancy had spent years creating conflict between him and Amelia. Not entirely, not completely. His mistakes remained his own. Yet many situations he believed were misunderstandings suddenly looked very different. The realization sickened him. Amelia remained quiet throughout the entire revelation. Not surprised, not shocked, almost relieved. Because deep down, she always suspected something was wrong. Now she finally had proof. Nancy's composure gradually collapsed. Excuses became accusations. Accusations became desperation. Desperation became panic. Eventually she screamed. The sound echoed across the courtyard. I did what I had to do. Nobody responded, because the outburst revealed more than any investigation. For the first time, everyone saw the truth. Not rumors, not assumptions. The truth. And the truth was ugly. The confrontation continued. The tension continued. The revelations continued. Then something happened. Something nobody expected. A guard suddenly rushed into the courtyard. Faster than the previous messenger. Far more alarmed. His expression immediately captured attention. Lucian turned. What is it now? The guard stopped abruptly. Panic filled his face.
Pure panic.
The kind impossible to fake. Then he delivered words that instantly froze every person present. My king. His breathing faltered. We can't find Amelia. Silence. Absolute silence. Everyone turned. The space where Amelia had been standing moments earlier now stood empty. Completely empty. No movement. No explanation. No warning.
Gone.
Ryder's heart stopped. Lucian's expression changed instantly. The king's calm demeanor vanished, replaced by something far more dangerous. Because Amelia had not left willingly. Not without notice. Not without protection. Not without explanation. Something had happened. And judging by Lucian's reaction,
Something very bad.
far beyond the palace walls, a dark carriage raced through the night, hidden beneath heavy coverings, hidden beneath layers of concealment. Inside, Amelia struggled against restraints. Her vision blurred. Her head pounded. The last thing she remembered was a strange scent. Then darkness. Then nothing. Now she was moving farther away from the kingdom with every passing second. Moving farther away from safety. Farther away from Lucian. Farther away from Ryder. And whoever orchestrated the abduction had chosen the timing perfectly. Because they weren't after Amelia alone. They were after the twins. And before dawn arrived, an enemy long hidden in the shadows would finally reveal themselves. For several moments after the announcement, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. The realization spread through the courtyard like a shockwave. Amelia was gone. Not missing. Not wandering.
Gone.
Every instinct within Lucian immediately rejected the possibility of a voluntary departure. Amelia would never leave without informing someone. Not now. Not while carrying twins. Not while enemies searched for her. Not while danger surrounded the kingdom. Which meant only one possibility remained. Someone had taken her. The king's expression hardened instantly. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the patient ruler. Gone was the calm strategist. In his place stood an alpha prepared for war. Seal every gate. His command echoed across the courtyard. Guards moved immediately. No hesitation. No delay. Training took over. Orders spread rapidly through the palace. Within minutes, the entire kingdom shifted into emergency response. Meanwhile, Ryder remained frozen. The guilt returned with overwhelming force. Months ago, he failed to protect Amelia. Now it is happening again. Only this time, he was standing close enough to stop it. And still, she had been taken. The thought felt unbearable. Lucian turned toward him. For several seconds, neither spoke. Months earlier, the two alphas might have viewed each other as rivals. Now, circumstances demanded something different. Something neither particularly liked. Cooperation. The king finally broke the silence. If we waste time arguing, she dies. Ryder answered immediately. Then let's find her. The agreement was simple. Uneasy. Necessary. Within the hour, search parties spread across multiple territories. Scouts tracked movement. Messengers carried intelligence. Patrol units expanded outward. Every available resource joined the hunt. Because this was no longer merely a kidnapping. It was an attack against the Crescent bloodline. An attack against royal heirs. An attack against the future itself. Far away from the kingdom, Amelia slowly opened her eyes. Pain greeted her first. A pounding headache. A burning sensation behind her temples. Disorientation. Then reality returned. Cold stone walls surrounded her. Heavy chains secured her wrists. A single lantern provided weak illumination. The air smelled damp, old, forgotten. For several seconds, she struggled to understand where she was. Then the memory returned.
The courtyard. Nancy.
The confrontation. A strange scent. Darkness. Her heart immediately raced. Her hands moved toward her stomach. Relief washed over her. The twins were still there. Still safe.
For now.
A faint sound interrupted her thoughts. Footsteps. Approaching. Steady. Deliberate. Amelia immediately straightened. The chamber door creaked open. A figure entered.
Tall.
Elegant. Confidence. The face appeared familiar. Not from personal experience. From paintings. From history books. From stories told in whispers. The realization hit instantly. One of the noble families connected to the original conspiracy. One of the bloodlines responsible for her parents' deaths. The man smiled. A cold smile. Not cruel. Not angry.
Worse.
Satisfied. As expected, his voice echoed softly. You resemble your mother. Amelia stared. Every instinct screamed danger. The stranger approached slowly. No fear. No urgency. Only certainty. You know who I am. It wasn't a question. The man clearly believed she already understood. Unfortunately, he was correct. Lucien had mentioned the name. Years ago. One family stood at the center of nearly every investigation. One family repeatedly appeared whenever the throne faced instability. House Ravencrest. The man inclined his head slightly. Lord Malric Ravencrest. The introduction confirmed everything. Amelia felt anger rise immediately. Not fear. Not helplessness. Anger. Because this man represented decades of suffering. Because this man represented stolen lives. Because this man represented the reason she grew up without parents. Malric noticed. His smile widened. Good. The response surprised her. Most villains wanted fear. This man appeared to prefer resistance. He circled slowly, like a predator studying prey. Your mother looked at me exactly the same way. The statement made Amelia's stomach turn. Malric stopped, then sighed. As unfortunate as her death was, his eyes shifted toward her stomach. History often demands sacrifices. The casual way he spoke about murder made her blood boil. Amelia pulled against her restraints. The chains rattled. The effort achieved nothing. Malric seemed amused. You inherited more spirit than expected. Another smile. Another step closer. Then his expression changed. The amusement vanished, replaced by focus, purpose, obsession. The twins. Amelia immediately understood. This was never about revenge. Never about hatred. Never about old grudges. The twins were the objective. Everything else was secondary. Malric folded his hands behind his back. The prophecy concerns many people. Silence followed. Then he continued. Some believe the heirs will unite kingdoms. His gaze sharpened. Others believe they will control them. The distinction mattered. A great deal. Because power attracts those who seek to possess it. Malric had no intention of allowing the twins to remain beyond his influence. Before Amelia could respond, a sharp pain struck her abdomen. She inhaled sharply. The sensation disappeared almost immediately, then returned. Stronger. Different. A flicker of concern crossed Malric's face. Only briefly. Amelia lowered her gaze. The realization arrived slowly. Then all at once.
No, not now.
It was too early. Far too early. Yet her body disagreed. Another wave of pain followed. More intense. More persistent. Malric immediately recognized the problem. For the first time, a genuine alarm appeared. Impossible. Amelia's breathing quickened. The twins were coming. Outside, several miles away, Ryder and Lucien finally located the hideout. An abandoned fortress hidden among mountains. Ancient. Defensible. Perfect for concealment. Scouts confirmed movement inside. Confirmed guards. Confirmed prisoners. Everything pointed toward one location. One target. One chance. The two alphas stood overlooking the structure. Warriors gathered behind them. Weapons ready. Expressions grim. Neither leader needed motivation. Each possessed their own reason for fighting. Lucien fought for family. Ryder fought for redemption. Both fought for Amelia. The king drew his sword. Moonlight reflected across the blade. Then he gave the order. Move. The assault began. Explosions shattered silence. Defensive barriers collapsed. The warriors surged forward. Combat erupted throughout the fortress. Steel clashed. Commands echoed. Chaos spread rapidly. Inside the prison chamber, Amelia heard everything. The sounds grew closer. Louder. Violent. Hope ignited immediately. Someone had found her. Someone was coming. Another contraction struck. This one is stronger than the previous two. A cry escaped before she could stop it. Malric cursed. The situation had spiraled beyond his control. Everything was happening too quickly. Far too quickly. Then the chamber doors exploded inward. The wood shattered. Metal twisted. Dust filled the air. Two figures charged through the opening. Lucian, Ryder. The sight nearly brought Amelia to tears. Relief flooded through her. Powerful. Overwhelming. The rescue had arrived. Malric attempted escape. He never reached the doorway. Lucian intercepted him immediately. The impact sent both men crashing into a stone wall. Their battle erupted instantly. Meanwhile, Ryder rushed toward Amelia. Without hesitation. Without caution. Without concern for himself. Only concern for her. He dropped beside her. Examined the restraints. Examined her condition. Then I noticed her expression. The pain. The fear. The realization struck immediately. The babies. Amelia nodded. Another contraction answered for her. Ryder's face lost color. The timing couldn't be worse. Battle outside. Danger everywhere. And now labor. A blinding flash suddenly illuminated the chamber. Everyone froze. Including Lucian. Including Malric. Including Ryder. Silver light erupted around Amelia. Not from the walls. Not from the ceiling. From her. The energy expanded outward. Ancient symbols appeared across the floor. The same symbols seen within the crystal months earlier. Only stronger. Much stronger. The entire fortress began shaking. The stone cracked. Dust rained from above. Power surged through the room like a living force. Then it happened.
A cry. Small. New.
Beautiful. The first child was born. Seconds later, another cry followed. The second child arrived.
Twins.
Safe.
Alive.
For one brief moment, everything became still. Then both infants opened their eyes. Silver light filled the chamber. Brighter than moonlight. Brighter than fire. Brighter than anything anyone had ever witnessed. Even Malric stared in disbelief. Because the mark appearing on the twin skin was not supposed to exist. Not according to legend. Not according to history. Not according to prophecy. And yet there it was. Glowing. Ancient.
Real.
A symbol forgotten for centuries. A symbol powerful enough to make kings kneel. And the moment it appeared, everyone understood. The prophecy had only just begun. The chamber remained frozen in stunned silence. Even the battle raging beyond the fortress walls seemed distant. Irrelevant. Every eye remained fixed on the newborn twins. The silver mark glowing upon their skin illuminated the room with an otherworldly radiance. No one spoke. No one dared. Because everyone present understood they were witnessing something that should not have been possible. Something believed lost to history. Something many considered nothing more than legend. Ryder knelt beside Amelia. One arm supporting her shoulders. The other carefully protects the children. His heart pounded harder than it ever had in battle. Not from fear. From wonder. The twins were beautiful. Tiny. Fragile.
Perfect.
For a brief moment, the world narrowed to nothing but that sight. His children.
Alive.
Breathing.
Safe.
A gift he almost lost before he even knew they existed. Across the chamber, Lucian slowly rose from the ground. His battle with Malric had ended. The nobleman now lay defeated beneath fallen stone and shattered timber. Years of ambition. Years of manipulation. Years of bloodshed. Finished. Not through conquest. Not through power. But through failure. His obsession with controlling the future had ultimately destroyed him. Yet nobody paid attention to Malric anymore. Because something far more important had happened. The future had already arrived. A group of royal warriors entered moments later. Behind them came elders from the Crescent Kingdom. Ancient wolves whose responsibilities included protecting royal records and interpreting sacred traditions. Several carried expressions of disbelief. Others looked frightened. One elderly woman stepped forward. Her hands trembled visibly. Not from age. From shock. Slowly, she approached the twins. Then she saw the glowing marks clearly. Immediately, she dropped to one knee. Several elders followed. Then several more, one after another, until nearly every elder in the room had lowered themselves before the newborns. Ryder stared. Lucian stared. Even Amelia looked confused. Finally, one elder found his voice. The mark of first light. The title echoed through the chamber. Amelia frowned. What does that mean? The elder swallowed. For several moments, he appeared unsure how to answer. Then he spoke carefully. As far as history records.
His voice shook slightly.
It has not appeared for over 600 years. Silence followed. The implications were obvious. Whatever the mark represented, it carried enormous significance. Lucian stepped closer. Explain. The elder nodded respectfully. The First Light bloodline founded the earliest alliance among werewolf kingdoms. Several listeners exchanged glances. Ancient history. Ancient power. Ancient responsibility. The elder continued. The bloodline vanished during the era of fractures. Amelia had heard that name before. Every student of history had. The era of fractures represented centuries of warfare, betrayal, and division. Entire kingdoms fell. Entire bloodlines disappeared. Entire histories were erased. Yet somehow, one forgotten legacy had survived. Inside her children. The realization settled heavily across the room. Then something unexpected happened. One of the twins opened his eyes. The room brightened instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. Silver energy rippled outward. Candles ignited. Crystals glowed. Ancient symbols carved into the walls suddenly illuminated. Several elders gasped. One actually stumbled backward. The infant looked around innocently, completely unaware of the reaction. Then the light faded. Silence returned. Nobody knew what to say, because nobody had ever seen anything like it. Eventually, the elderly woman whispered something almost too quietly to hear. The heir has awakened. The words sent another wave of unease through the room. Not because they sounded threatening, because they sounded certain. Meanwhile, Amelia held both children close. The noise around her seemed distant. For the first time since leaving Moonfong, peace settled over her heart. Not complete peace. Life rarely works that way. But enough. Enough to breathe. Enough to smile. Enough to believe the future might finally contain happiness. Then she looked up. Toward Ryder. Toward the man whose choices had altered everything. Their eyes met. Neither spoke immediately. Because some conversations require honesty above all else. Eventually, Ryder broke the silence. I don't deserve forgiveness. The statement arrived without hesitation, without self-pity, without expectation. Simply the truth. Amelia listened. Ryder lowered his gaze briefly, then continued. I failed you. His voice remained steady. I failed our children. No excuses followed. No justifications followed. No attempts to shift blame. Only accountability. For perhaps the first time in his life, Ryder spoke without defending himself. Amelia respected that. Even if it changed nothing. The alpha exhaled slowly. Then delivered the hardest sentence of all. If walking away is what you choose. His eyes returned to hers. I will accept it. The words carried genuine pain. Yet they also carried respect. At last he understood. Love could not be forced. A trust could not be demanded. Second chances could not be claimed like territory. They had to be earned. And some opportunities never returned. Amelia studied him carefully, then nodded. A small nod. A respectful nod. Not reconciliation. Not rejection. Something in between. Something unfinished. Something real. Nearby, Lucian watched quietly. Then, after several moments, he stepped forward. The king rarely hesitated. This time he did. Because what he was about to say mattered. More than politics. More than kingdoms. More than tradition. He looked directly at Amelia. When you arrived here, his voice softened. You were searching for answers. Amelia listened. Lucian smiled faintly. And somewhere along the way, he paused. I found something I wasn't searching for. The room became noticeably quieter. Several advisors suddenly found other places to look. The meaning was obvious. Even Ryder understood. Lucien's gaze never left Amelia. I care about you. No dramatic declaration. No grand speech. No elaborate confession. Just honesty. Simple.
Direct. Genuine.
Amelia felt her heart tighten. Not because she was uncomfortable, because she knew it was sincere. Lucien had stood beside her during her darkest moments. I supported her, protected her. I believed in her. Everything he said carried weight. Everything he felt carried the truth. Yet before Amelia could respond, another interruption arrived. A royal advisor entered hurriedly, breathing heavily, face pale. The expression immediately captured Lucien's attention. What happened? The advisor stopped. I looked toward the twins, then toward the elders. Finally, he spoke. Word is spreading. Nobody seemed surprised. Of course it was spreading. News always spreads, especially news like this. The advisor swallowed, then added something far more concerning. Kingdoms across the continent are already requesting confirmation. Silence followed, because everyone understood what that meant. The birth had changed everything. Political alliances, succession, power balances, ancient agreements. Nothing would remain untouched. Amelia looked down at her children. Then I looked around the room. At the elders. At Lucien. At Ryder. In the future waiting beyond the fortress walls. For the first time in her life, she understood exactly who she was. Not a rejected mate. Not a forgotten orphan. Not a woman defined by heartbreak. She was Amelia Crescent. Mother.
Princess.
Survivor. And something even greater. The rightful Luna Queen. Weeks later, the kingdom celebrated. Festivals filled the streets. Music echoed through marketplaces. Citizens gathered beneath silver banners. For the first time in generations, hope united the kingdom. Yet beneath the celebration, questions remained. Questions about the future. Questions about the prophecy. Questions about the twins. Then, during a gathering of royal elders, something happened. Something nobody expected. One of the twins suddenly looked toward the night sky. The infant could barely focus his eyes, barely hold his head upright. Yet his gaze fixed upon the moon. A silver glow appeared, stronger than before. Ancient symbols spread across his skin. The room fell silent. The elders immediately dropped to their knees. Several appeared terrified. One elderly scholar began shaking. Another whispered an ancient prayer. Finally, the oldest elder present looked toward Amelia. His face had gone completely pale. When he spoke, his voice barely emerged above a whisper. The prophecy is incomplete. Silence. Absolute silence. Amelia frowned. What do you mean? The elder swallowed. Then I looked toward the child. Fear filled his eyes. Real fear. The kind, powerful wolves rarely showed. Finally, he revealed the final secret. There is another heir. The room froze. Amelia stared. Lucien stared. Ryder stared. The elder continued. A hidden heir. His voice trembled. One who is never recorded. The moonlight brightened. The infant's glowing eyes remained fixed on the heavens. And somewhere far beyond the kingdom, in a place forgotten by history, a second ancient mark suddenly awakened. On someone nobody knew existed. Someone who had been waiting their entire life. Waiting for this exact moment. Waiting for the return of the first light bloodline. Waiting for the beginning of a war that would decide the fate of every werewolf kingdom. And this time, the danger would be greater than anything Amelia had faced before.